thanks to everybody for coming along to this Counterfire session on the trade unions, a strategy for struggle, trade unions and the rank and file. As I'm sure you're all aware, lots has been going on recently with the various unions, so it's a really, obviously great meeting to be having and very timely. My name's Clare Solomon. I'm an app teacher. I'm a member of the TEFL Workers Union and can definitely sympathise with some of the issues with that lots of other people are having at the moment in terms of holiday pay, sick pay, and so on. Um, I'm going to be introducing the speakers to you, and they're going to be speaking for 8 minutes each. The first speaker, what I'll do is I'll introduce them all now, actually. I'll introduce them one by one. But we've got Glen Hart from the RMT. He's going to go first. Then we've got Yaseen Aslam from the App Drivers and Couriers Union. And then we've got Unjum Mirza from Aslam. I'll give you more details on each of them as they come in. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who is Glen Hart. He's from the RMT. He's the elected relief regional organiser of both the trains and the tubes. So it's a great pleasure to introduce him. I'm sure you've been really busy. It's brilliant to have you here. Thank you, Glen.
Yeah, and thank you, Chair. And also, just to let you know, I've only recently been elected, so for the last 20 odd years, I've been in the workforce on the front line, doing what I still see myself as quite very much part of the rank and file, even though that relationship has changed now. I've been recently elected. So yeah, I'm Glen Hart. I'm one of the regional organisers for R&T, and what I'm going to speak about is our national rail dispute, and which is the first ever national coordinated dispute in recent times. And what's happening at the moment is our members are facing a politicised attack for taking industrial action. So what we've got is we've got two main disputes. We've got one on London Underground and the other on network rail and train operating companies, which are different disputes, but at the same time they all share similar attributes which contribute to the cost of living crisis. And that includes things like a 2-year pay freeze while inflation is running rampant. We've had massive cuts to jobs across all those companies. Our members are facing cuts to working practices, terms and conditions. Their collective agreements are being slashed without any consultation. And our railway pension scheme is under attack, with the potential of massive increases in contributions and restricted benefits. So it's in the face of this, the RMT cannot be passive. The whole purpose of being in a trade union is to collectively defend jobs. That's why 89% of our members voted overwhelmingly in favour of action out of a 71% turnout for this dispute. What we're up against is a right-wing media narrative and a government who would do anything to smash workers' rights. And that, indeed, they have introduced a wealth of legislation to counteract workers from their fundamental right to withdraw their labour, as well as other freedoms. So what we're seeking is an end to industry-wide pay freezes. We need substantial real-term pay increases, a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies, an assurance of no detrimental changes to our members' working practices, terms and conditions. And these are all very much basic demands. It does need to be remembered that trade unions were fully cooperative throughout the pandemic. We provided frontline public services with our members putting themselves and their families at risk. And it's through their efforts that the industries kept running and didn't become bankrupt because of it. At one stage, these workers were being applauded as essential key workers. Now none of the companies are willing to meet our demands. A lot of these companies have felt empowered and propped up by this uncaring government. So that's why it took a mass mobilisation to respond in the way we did. And some may say it's a consequence of anti-trade union laws that we have to do more to resist and put in more effort. But we've been so effective at that now that the Tories are frantically clutching at straws, and they want to prevent other unions from getting any ideas. So they're considering introducing things like agency scab workers to cover safety critical roles or minimum service requirements during a strike. But unusually, for the first time I seem to remember, is we seem to have the general public on our side. Independent polling released by R&T yesterday shows nearly 3/4 of the public want rail workers to have a cost of living pay increase. And we found strong support for rail workers to receive a fairer deal and for the government to intervene. A clear majority of the public support the rail workers' right to strike after negotiations have failed. And it's a blow to companies and the government that the poll reveals widespread opposition to the plans to cut thousands of rail jobs and show the public are clearly opposed to government policy of allowing profiteering from the rail industry. So I'm not going to read out the breakdown of all the statistics, but what I will do is just repeat what R&T General Secretary Mick Lynch has said in response to the poll. And what he says is, this poll supports the evidence we've seen on picket lines this week. There is strong support for rail workers to receive a fairer deal and for the government to intervene to address rail workers' concerns. A clear majority of the public also supports rail workers' right to strike. There is also massive public opposition to plans to cut thousands of track, train and station jobs and to the government's policy of allowing profiteering from the rail industry. It's time the government listened to the public instead of picking political fights with rail workers. And it's not impossible to agree with Mick in that sense. That's why we're constantly reminding our members and our activists the following. We need to be united in purpose and determined in our approach. We need to win this, bust the pay freeze and push back the boss's jobs and conditions cuts agenda. We cannot be passive in the face of this challenge. If we are, we have already lost. Our members will suffer and our union will be finished. That's why we are ready for the battle and we will win. So I just want to say solidarity and thank you for the time listening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I think you're absolutely right. There does seem to be a huge amount of support for the rail workers' strikes. You know, if you guys win and if you guys have success, then obviously that has an impact right across the board. So well done and keep up the good work. Thanks so much for everything that you're doing. I'd like to bring in the next speaker now, who's also been on strike recently, from the Uber drivers sector. I've got Yaseen Aslam, who's from the app drivers and couriers union, who have also been, who have organised coordinated strikes with the various days of strikes that the RMT have been doing this week. So I'll bring in Yaseen now for 8 minutes. Thank you very much, Yaseen.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Firstly, I want to say thank you to Glenn and all the RMT strikers. It was them guys that inspired us to do this strike that we had against Uber last week. A week before that, we had a strike against Bolt. And I think it's quite difficult for workers, especially low-paid workers, especially with the cost of living and all these crises around us when people are already struggling to go out on strike. But the point is, we have to go on strike. We have to do this strike to make sure our voice are heard. So the Uber strike for us guys is we were requesting all our drivers, all our members across the UK to log off. We also did a protest in Leeds and also in London. And we also did a march from Uber's head office to Uber's hub. And it's amazing to see real drivers, real people come out, and you could see that anger in the drivers because, like one of the biggest expenses drivers have is fuel. And you could see what's happening with the fuel crisis. Fuel keeps going up. But unfortunately, like when you compare us to RMT or some other sectors like bus drivers or, like we work in a completely different sector, which they call platform workers or gig workers. It's a word that they use. But like we need this support from the passengers. And one of the things as ADCU, yes, we are rallying our members, we are growing, we are reaching out to as many people as we can. But at the same time, we need this support from the public. So if the public, so it's like when you have a physical picket line, when you're outside a building, people would not cross that picket line, where we have a virtual picket line. And when we say virtual, what we're calling for, and we're going to keep doing this strike, and the reason why I'm saying this is there's so many people listening to this video, we need your support. We need you to get this message out to people that when we do a strike, we want you not to use the app. That means you also boycott that You respect our digital picket line. And that's the message where, once we have that solidarity, that support, we'll achieve so much. And I just want to go back, even though we're talking about strike, one of the reasons why I started organizing back in 2014, 15 was the way the drivers were treated. They're seen as the lowest class possible, and it seemed as a low skilled kind of job. So, for example, in 2014, I had a driver that got assaulted. He didn't report it to the police. His only concern at the time, because Uber then blocked his app because he got assaulted, his only concern at the time was to get back on the app. If you report any assault to the police, they don't want to know. You're wasting your time, and they do everything to push you out. The regulator, TfL, they don't want to know anything about it. Politicians don't want to know. Over the years, last year alone, we had 3 drivers murdered. And the question is, because I'm involved with the drivers day to day, an average person out there does not see the abuse, the racism, the verbal, physical abuse that our members face on a day to day. And that's the reason why I come forward and I started organizing. I wanted to put up, like when I compare myself to buses, like if a bus driver gets assaulted, if a train driver gets assaulted, these were unionized workers. And we never had, 10 years ago, there was no union for Uber drivers. They never would join a union. So we come a long way. So just to give you a little background on ADCU, we're the largest trade union representing Uber drivers, also couriers like Deliveroo. Majority of our members are BME workers, and they're like honest, hardworking people, and they get happy when they make £100 a day. And this is where Uber, like companies like Uber, their model actually relies on misclassifying these workers. So we took Uber to court. We won at the Supreme Court, but we won some basic rights, such as the right to minimum wage, right to holiday, but a lot needs to be done. So going forward, we're going to see more and more companies, like when we talk about RMT and these employers, we're going to see more employers actually change their model, something similar to what we have. And it's a dangerous sort of territory. So this is why we all need to unite and we need to stand up, because when you talk about, it's not just about unionizing workers, it's also about making sure that their statutory rights are given to them. They have the basic protection at work, meaning they shouldn't be abused at work. And these are the kinds. So when you compare an average Uber driver, he's working about 60, 70 hours, making £5 an hour. And don't get me wrong, if Uber got rid of all these drivers, they'll find plenty of drivers that work for £3 an hour. Yeah. But the point is, we have these laws, we have these protection, but the government is failing to enforce on them. And then on the other side, we have Uber's CEO making £21,000 an hour. £21,000 an hour. So the point is, all like their model is heavily based on where the driver carries all the expenses, all the costs. So if for example, a driver goes on a strike and he's not going to work, he has expenses to pay. So it's very hard. So for us guys, when we got workers struggling financially, and then you call in a strike and you want them to not earn anything and in fact pay more money out, it just gets harder and harder. And like I said, we need to work together. We need to look at ways on how, we could build this solidarity between different unions, different organizations, how we could lobby politicians. So don't get me wrong, it's like Uber right now. They have a very good influence within Parliament. They're recognized by certain unions, yeah? And we're seeing this across around the world. And that's because we won. Because we've been fighting them for the last 7 years, Uber has now adapted their model in a way where there are certain Labour politicians that would go and sit on the table with Uber. And this is we're in a very difficult kind of stuff. So I just want to I just want to give you a little bit of a background on what we do and why we do it. So there's a lot of work we're doing. And going forward, we're going to do plenty of strike. I mean, we're going to keep doing these strikes because strikes do work, because we're getting more and more members joining us because they want some action. And over the last 2 weeks, we've never seen an increase in our sign-up. So if people were against these strikes, we would start losing members, but we're having the opposite impact because more and more people are angry. But the question is, how do we, we need that support from the general public, from these activists that could come in and support us to make sure that we could take this campaign, to make sure our voice are heard. So I just want to end this here because I've sort of given you a little background, but I don't want to point fingers at no one else here. So I just sort of want to just look at myself, you know, like as a trade union, as a person that represents drivers or courier workers, you know, like we all, or myself, we need to look at what our strengths are. What do we have more than others that we could give back to the community? So it's like me, every night before I go to sleep, I think to myself, how many people have I helped? How many? And every day we deal with license cases. There are certain drivers that lose their license, but because we're involved on a day-to-day basis, we're able to change their life, meaning they got some kind of income coming in. We're fighting for better pay and condition. So we need to be asking ourselves, or myself, I ask myself a question is, what difference am I making to people's life?
45 seconds left, Yaseen.
Yeah, so these are the kind of questions we got to be asking, you know, people. So one of the things is, whether Uber has the lobbying power, we have the people power. And we have all these people united, whether they're Uber drivers, whether they're train drivers, whether they're cleaners, you know, if we all could come together and unite and fight together, we'll definitely win. We'll definitely win. And this is what we need to, and this is my message, that we need to build that workers' power, we need to build that people power, and we need to work in solidarity to make sure all workers have that dignity and respect they need. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yaseen. It's really inspiring, isn't it? It's a very new kind of sector, new industry. And so there'll be a lot of people watching what you're doing, seeing how they can relate that to their, your time's just gone off, relate that to their own workplace struggles. And I really love the idea of the digital picket line. Thank you for letting us know how we can support you in the future. Good luck with all of that. Okay, I'm going to bring us on to our final speaker to kick us off for the session. We've got Unjum Mirza next. He's the Assistant Secretary of the Aslam Victoria Line, based in Brixton. He's also the editor of Tunnel Vision, which is a rank and file publication about the railways, which we'll share in the link with you a bit later. So without further ado, hand you over to Unjum, and then we'll open up for questions and contributions. Thank you, Unjum.
Thank you, Claire. Solidarity to Glen and the RMT. What a week. We'll come back to that. Absolutely astonishing week. And Yaseen and the ADCU, I was on the ADCU strike on Wednesday, and it was astonishing. Not only did you pull the strikers together at Aldgate Towers for the speeches, and very crucially, allowing the drivers themselves, the workers themselves, to speak and give their experiences. We had an impromptu march down onto the Uber HQ, and there was a great face-off with the OBIL, with the police protecting the bosses, and the workers on the other side demanding the Uber bosses come out and face the workers. Of course they didn't, and they bottled it. But what a great moment! And as Yaseen said, consciously, deliberately, and rightly coordinated with the RMT strikes. That's what solidarity is. That's what solidarity is about. As for this week, I mean, just Saturday previous, we were all marching together on the TUC demonstration. Absolutely fantastic demonstration. And then this week, a watershed week in British politics, I think we'll find, has really shifted. You know, we're all on the picket lines together, and it's really shifted things along. Picket lines from London, Bristol, Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, Penzance, Brighton, you name it, everywhere. My good friend, former Aslam president, Tosh MacDonald, was on a biking tour way up in north of Scotland, and he ended up on the Inverness RMT picket line. Everywhere you went, there was a picket line to go to. Absolutely astonishing week. And that solidarity was extended, not just with the ADCU, I thought yesterday with the cleaners at St George's Hospital, the mighty cleaners, you know, incredible strike. They've been on strike all week. They've been on strike all week. And they demonstrated in South London. They took the tube, the Northern Line. Frankly speaking, that Northern Line train ended up part of the demonstration. I've never been on such a loud and excitable tube in my life. Came out King's Cross, marched down to the RMT rally, and took the Euston Road. Absolutely astonishing sense of solidarity. And I'll see Mick Lynch is down to reciprocate that solidarity, is down at the mighty picket line in Tooting today, which is, and that's the whole. There's a real buzz, I think, after this week, and what you've seen ended on there in terms of what we need is that unity and that solidarity, and actually start acting and all coordinating together is precisely what we need. Is absolutely right. And there's scope, certainly on the railways, there's scope for so much more. The fact that the ASLEF ballots on the TOCs, there's already the ASLEF strike that took place, by the way, on Greater Anglia trains on Thursday. So everything from Ipswich to Norwich to Colchester to Clacton, Bishop's Stortford, Cambridge, down to Ilford, people know Ilford, east end of London. That line was out in coordination with the RMT National Rail Strike. Whole trains, that will come, but that's a live ballot. And there's 11 more ballots due to come and to be declared on the 11th of July. The TSSA likewise have got ballots on the TOCs, on the train operating companies, and on Network Rail. They're due to come at the end of June and at the beginning of July as well. So the possibilities here for coordination are absolutely massive. Unite have just declared a huge yes vote on BA, British Airways. The Royal Mail are balloting nationally, both the Royal Mail and BT. And we see the PCS are also balloting. The NEU are moving towards a ballot. So you get a real sense that there's something really shifting inside the class. This is the return of our class. This is the return of the working class and class struggle smack bang in the middle of British politics, and politics everywhere. The multi-layered crises that's taking place at the moment, not just the cost of living crisis. We've seen the COVID crisis, we've had austerity, you've got the climate crisis, and frankly speaking, a really deep political crisis in the country. Now, the media just simply do not understand it. They really do not understand what's going on and the level of generalization across the board in our class. See, they like to, for want of a better expression, they refer to the Mick Lynch phenomenon. I'm sure Glenn would agree. Mick would find this funny because he's probably a bit bemused because he's been talking about class all his life. And why is it fit now? Because frankly speaking, if anyone went to the picket lines, all of us who've been to the picket lines, just how articulate our working class people are about what's going on in their working lives, in their communities, and their general experience amidst this crisis. And frankly speaking, why does it connect? Why does what Mick's done connect, and what the RMT have done connect with people? And it's really quite simple, tell you the truth. When you see on Friday, the CEO of Birmingham Airways award himself 49% pay rise, actually it connects. People know this is an absolute outrage. Now Nick Barton from the Airways, Birmingham Airways, is on a par with Andrew Haynes, who's the CEO for Network Rail, on £585,000. That's before the bonuses. There's obviously not a cost of living crisis there for him, and indeed the governor of the Bank of England himself on £575,000. Of course, no cost of living crisis for him. That's how it connects. It connects when the energy companies, on the very day that we're told that our energy bill prices are going to go up 54%. And by the way, again, in October, they announced 22 billion profits, to 22 billion pound profits. That's how it connects. When the four main banks in this country, HSBC, Lloyds, NatWest, and another, I can't remember it for now, they declare 34 billion pounds profits. That's how it connects. People understand in terms of the gap, the gulf between their own experience and the rich, and actually our politicians as well, who award themselves £22,000 £2,200 pay rise, and they're telling us that actually what there is a wage crisis spiral. Utter nonsense. We've seen inflation increase as wages have been stagnated for the past beyond a decade over austerity. So it's utter rubbish. So what it really comes down to is this, and these are the next steps. I know, we've got a few people here, and I know we've got my vice president from Aslam here as well. What I think we need to do is, come the 11th of July, we need to coordinate all the live ballots that we've got. So when Aslam declare their live ballots, and they're going to be yes votes, without a shadow of doubt, we start coordinating those ballots across the unions. I think we can coordinate, and we need to push for coordination across the sector as well, i.e. with Unite and with BA. What we do with the government on the back foot here, in total utter crisis, in civil war, we go on the front foot, and actually what we say here, we gave you a warning, we gave you this week, that was the warning. Now we're going out, and by the way, we're not telling you when we're coming back, and that's how we're going to win. The thing is, if we're going to shift the balance of forces in this country, and if we're going to actually get rid of this rotten Tory government, if we're going to do that, that's the way we're going to have to behave. You're not going to get any support from a Labour government. You probably saw the statement. You saw the statement from Keir Starmer. The statement from David Lammy is appalling, absolutely appalling, when he says it's not for the Labour Party to represent organised Labour. He hasn't got a damn clue. That's down to us, but it means we need to coordinate across the unions, but at the base, to ensure that actually we coordinate and we go out all together and we smash
Brilliant.
Wage restraint.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Unjum. Virtual clap, everybody.